Welcome to Transformative Principal, where I help you stop putting out fires and start leading. I am your host, Jethro Jones. You can follow me on Twitter at Jethro Jones. Welcome to Transformative Principal. I am your host, Jethro Jones. I've got my good friend Danny Bauer here with me, and we are continuing our Reject the Premise book writing creation thing, whatever we're doing. It's been a while since we released one of these episodes, and it's been a while on my podcast especially because we are alternating between Transformative Principal and Better Leaders, Better Schools. And what we did about a year ago is we started writing a book, and we made all these great ideas and did all these note cards, and then we both just let the project go. And then after a while, we got, we talk all the time, and so we said, hey, we should do something with this. And so we decided we're going to record these episodes and then write a book from this and see what comes of it. So in the show notes today, you can find the link to part 1 of this, and which was on Danny's podcast. Part 2 was on my podcast. Part 3 was on Danny's podcast. And this is part 4 of this. And we did like 46 cards, so this could go on for a while. And we're not putting any pressure on ourselves to do this in any certain kind of way or anything like that, because we're just going to let it go with the flow and release them as they come. So welcome, and I hope you enjoy this. What we do is we go through each one of these premises that we have and why we should reject these ideas, reject the premise, and do something different instead. So anything you want to add to that, Danny?
Yeah, reject what we have to say too, right? So like that's the whole idea. Right. Like the point is that you're thinking for yourself, and that, our assertion is at times school leaders are sort of given, here's how we think about school. And, one of my mentors, Christopher Lockhead, says, thinking about thinking is the most important kind of thinking, right? And so don't just passively accept what the system says, what your colleagues say, even what Jethro and I, talk about on the show. If you agree with us, great. If you disagree with us, great. Tell us why. Let's have a conversation on social media. Make it social again, less about politics and stuff that's just like gonna make people upset. But let's have real discussions, right? About school leadership and doing school different, things that we're passionate about. So I think that's all I have to add is don't even accept what we have to say as truth either. If it is for you, awesome. If it's not, awesome.
Yeah, and the beauty is that as you define what you believe better, you actually attract people to you who believe what you believe. And
sure.
And even if somebody completely disagrees with what you think, they at least know where you stand. And one of the real tragedies is that we don't understand where people stand enough, in my opinion. And we think that, we're all in school, so we all do it the same way, and we all think the same things, and that's, 1, not good for everybody, and 2, that's not good for you yourself when you're just going along and going with the flow. So we're going to get started here. Our first one, the premise is a question: what is good teaching? And instead of asking what good teaching looks like, and this is something that I've been ranting on for a couple of years now, is schools should really be about learning as a whole, first of all. And so I have 2 new premises to adopt here. One is that school should be about learning, not about teaching. And the second is, who are the kids becoming as a result of being in the school? And the academic stuff, I'm sure I've said this before, but every time I do a speech or something, I ask people what they remember about their own K-12 education experience.
Yeah.
And it is never about the lessons or about the tests or about anything that we put so much intentionality into. It's almost always about who the teachers were, who they believed the kids could become, and what they really became is what mattered. What would you add there, Danny?
It's not about the test, Jethro.
I know, it's crazy. It's crazy.
What's wild about it is that, obviously, like the system and politics, like they put so much pressure on that outcome. Oh, what city is that Starbucks cup from?
Oh, this is from Berlin, where I went with my daughter this summer.
Yeah, that's nice.
Yeah, so I bring one of these back. I got one from Prague also, and had a great time over there in Europe, by the way.
Yeah. Right
We
on.
haven't talked since I went, have we?
No, so I feel comfortable just
Yeah.
going on a tangent. And Miriam was just in Bangkok and Dubai, so she got one
Oh,
from both of
awesome.
those cities. Those cups are massive. We're talking about Starbucks cups. If you're not seeing the video,
The Been There series.
yeah, the Been There series. But I think that's illustrative. Is that a word? It's
Oh,
it.
yeah, it is.
Yeah, it's showing learning in a sense. You purchased a memento, but getting out of the sort of the box, the four walls of the classroom, and making the world the classroom opens up a world of possibility, right? And what you can learn. And I know you've lived overseas. I've lived overseas for a while, and getting out of your comfort zone, that's a part of learning too, right? How do we measure that on a test? Where does it say, like, how were you pushed and challenged and stretched? You know what I mean? Instead of like X's and O's and A, B, C, and D, and what's the correct answer, true and false. I really love what you're saying about who students are becoming. So I haven't interviewed her yet, but the founder of the Alpha School in Dallas, Texas, and they're popping up everywhere.
Mackenzie.
Have you seen those? Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Have you interviewed
She's
her
been
yet?
on several. No, I haven't, but she's been on several different shows on the podcast network. So
Cool.
it's kind of fun that she's been on a bunch of these, and
Yeah.
It's really fascinating stuff what she's doing.
Yeah, and a big deal, networks like CBS and NBC, like the local news type of stuff, they're featuring her. And why? Because she's doing school different, right? And I'm sure it's making some people upset, potentially, because it's really turning the model upside down. And we have to grant that she has a lot of flexibility. It's a private school, right? So you have a little bit more opportunity to be creative. But I think there's lessons you can learn from there still. And it gives you permission to disrupt and innovate within a traditional space. That's what I say when we talk about ruckus makers do school different and rejecting the premise. The whole point of view is always that it's about reimagining what's possible, even in a traditional setting, so that you create a campus experience worth showing up for. So back to Alpha School, and I'm looking forward to interviewing her. They compact the teaching and learning to 2 hours, and leverage AI, right? They're seeing their students get more gains than traditional sort of ways of teaching. And then what do they do with all the rest of the time? They answer that question, who are the students becoming? They're teaching them to be good people, be good, responsible members of society. They're pursuing passion projects. They're doing stuff that you just need to learn how to do, like ride a bike if you're a little kid, right? It's really interesting, but that's what I miss from a school experience. I'll never forget Chicago. Reading scores down. Sound the alarms, right? Math scores abysmal, whatever. And the mayor at the time, Rahm Emanuel. Here's the thing. Doing more of what you're already doing doesn't mean you're going to get a better result, right? Yeah. Especially if the results are already suboptimal. And so the answer was, we're just going to make all those poor public school kids go to school longer and get extra doses of reading. Not more effective. We're going to give you the same slop, just a bigger bowl of it, right? Yeah. That is
You're dumb, so we're going to make you go to school longer and make you feel even more dumb. And we're going to keep telling you that you're dumb because you're not getting this. It's ridiculous. I don't know what we're thinking.
It's wild. And then they cut from the arts. They cut from, PE stuff that kids really need to be a kid. Especially like, this isn't worldwide, but in the U.S., you don't even see kids being kids as much anymore. And I'm guessing like you used to hop on your bike and your parents were like, don't come home until dinner. Right? Have you done your homework? Exactly. Yes. and then don't come home until dinner. And that doesn't happen as much in the U.S. anymore. Other places it certainly does. Reasons for that, not going to get into it now. But you learn stuff as you're out there exploring. I remember even like being across the street, crossing Robinson Avenue, going to the park, and boys bigger than me whooped my butt and threw these crab apples, hit me in the eye, black eye, all terrible stuff. But it also was sort of a learning moment how to defend myself and what to do. I survived, right? Thank God.
Yeah.
But like you don't get that if you're always in a bubble and staying at home. So I like the idea of who are students becoming, and that focus from teaching and learning.
So one thing I want to add about Alpha School, I've talked to Mackenzie and several other people at Alpha School about what they're doing, and the idea, excuse me, is actually quite similar to what I did at in Fairbanks, where we had the synergy time and we had kids work on passion projects.
Yeah.
And we were doing all that stuff without AI and without the support of it. And what's so amazing is that they've taken this idea that if there are discrete pieces of information that we want kids to learn, let's do that as fast and as quickly, as simply as possible, and break it down so small that we know exactly what it is that they're missing. And then we just make sure that they get that thing. And then with all the other stuff that takes so much more time, we should be doing things that are exciting, interesting, fun, enjoyable, but also hard, and put kids in these uncomfortable situations intentionally so that we can see the kind of people that they're becoming. Martin Luther King Jr. said, "The function of education is to teach one to think intensively and to think critically. Intelligence plus character, that is the true goal of education." And I love that because it doesn't matter how smart you are if you are a terrible person. And that is really something that is lacking in our education system, that we focus so much on these other things, and then we try to teach SEL and how to be a good person and character as lessons like we're teaching these other things. Try to teach addition up to 10 or up to 100 in the same way that you're trying to teach how to be a good person. And the thing is that everybody in a vacuum knows what the right answer and can give it for the character issues, but it's how you actually act that really matters. And so my picture for this one is a report card with all of the character, social, emotional, different aspects of who the kid is becoming, listed out with descriptions and words describing it, so that it's not just, you passed it. And then the academic stuff is just, yes, you got it. And that's what the thing that I really love about what Alpha School's doing is that they are saying, check all these boxes off. It's important to learn it. You need to be smart and have this information, but we can break it down in such a small way that we can get it done quickly. And then let's work on the real education, which is teaching you how to be resilient, have grit, have a growth mindset, all these things that we talk about and say we want in education, but we don't ever make the time for.
That's good. I like it. I'll just, the last 30 seconds. You remember last year in the football season, was it A.J. Brown? Is that his name? The wide receiver from the Eagles. Philadelphia fans, you're passionate about your team. If I messed that up, you could go ahead and send your hate mail to Jethro at transformativeprincipal.com. But anyway, he scored a touchdown and was then obviously resting on the sideline. He was reading a book. I got the book right here because I saw him holding it. Inner Excellence, right? I didn't buy it right away, but I remembered that moment. And what a great word of mouth, sort of, advertising campaign. It wasn't planned. It's just, so he's reading it. Good book. Very interesting. I think it could be shorter. That's okay. That's just a critique. You know what I mean? There's fluff, with a lot of books. But the big lesson that I learned, and it was super helpful, I realized how much I'm still focused and chasing sort of outcomes, and putting too much of my worth on sort of external validation that is ultimately out of my control. And the whole point of the book, as you can guess from the title, it's all about the inside. To your point, who are the students becoming? Who are we becoming? And really making that the focus. That's the game that we're playing. And if you can sort of master that, you let the chips and the cards fall as they will. But you can still be happy that you showed up in the type of person with integrity that you want to be. You know what I mean? And so that is the essential piece that we should be focused more on, whether it's school, business, society, writ large. So that's all I'll say there. I'm done.
Yeah, that's good. I've been pondering a lot about that kind of stuff also. And, and my kids actually said something to me the other day. We were talking about life and stuff, and they said, all these worldly, outside our family things are not going how we want them to, but we have a great family, and we know we have parents that love us. And like to hear my kids say that we're doing a great job as parents, and they're teenagers, man, like none of that other stuff matters at all. And and so, that's focus less on the outcomes that seem so important, and more on the ones that are important, and that's powerful.
Yeah.
All right. Next one is this one. There are a couple different ways that we phrase this. Number one, because you haven't done my exact role, you can't lead me, or something along the lines of principals need to have been in the classroom for at least a decade to be an effective principal.
Yeah.
What's the new premise after we reject that one?
I mean, the idea that you have to have a decade of experience or whatever, because social media, man, people on social, like I remember posting something from a Gallup, and this was research that they did recently within the last couple years, and they found that 53% of students were disengaged from school. This is this is an alarm. This is a terrible critique of the campus experience, right? It's not worth showing up for, is what it says. Over half your kids, Jethro, 53% say, I'm totally checked out, right? And when I posted that, my follow-up was, the problem is clear. Students aren't creating a can't miss experience, right? So
schools aren't creating a can't miss experience.
What did I say?
You said students.
Oh, yeah. Naughty Danny. Okay. Schools aren't creating a can't miss experience. And so, man, teachers, they were upset, Jethro, and essentially their responses to me is, I'm not Bozo the Clown. I don't work at Ringling Brothers. I'm not going to do a dog and pony show. And the interesting thing about
missing the point.
Thank you. I'm glad you caught that, because like hundreds, right? This post really took off, and there was a lot of upset feelings. And I'm like, why is everybody saying it has to be this like show? Who said that?
Yeah.
I said schools aren't creating a can't miss experience. This is basics. You have something that's so interesting that's going to happen on campus. I'm not staying home. I got to get there, right? Even if it's something social, right? Or back to travel, you were talking about. We went to London to march in the New Year's Day parade, right? And I'm sure, I don't remember at the time, I bet there was grade and behavior stuff maybe around that, to incentivize that we go. But at the same time, there's no way I was going to miss that trip. Going to London, marching the New Year's Day parade, that's amazing. And so are we doing it or not? You don't have to dress up like a clown. That is not the point. You could be like boring and monotone and whatever, but still create experience that kids want, right? And they'd still come, so you don't need all this flash. It doesn't require resources. And what I think it requires that is connected to principals needing a decade, to be an effective principal, experience as a teacher, No, you need a curiosity, you need an empathy, right? You need leadership, and it's like about having the right skills to be that leader versus the resume. The old way is that you put in your years, right? And now if you've crossed some sort of threshold and you have a few more wrinkles and some gray hair, now you can be a principal. No,
Yeah.
curiosity, empathy, the right skills, hard work, creativity, wanting to do school different, that kind of stuff. To me, that's what sets you up to be a success as a leader.
Yeah. So yesterday was my kid's first day of school. My sophomore son came home from school and he said, "My teacher had the best attention getter ever." And he told the story of how his teacher was just uh, he was saying hello, introducing and talking and like just hanging out at the beginning of class, just getting
Mm-hmm.
to know kids while he was mixing something in a beaker. And then he dumped the stuff out of the beaker and he lit a flame and the thing went boom and made this huge explosion in the middle of the class.
Yeah,
And like that is the kind of experience that is
yeah,
not
yeah,
a dog and pony show, because what he's going to do later, I know because I know this teacher, is he's going to say, "Here's how I made that happen and here's what it looks like and
yeah,
here's how these chemicals interact." And because he did that on the first day of school and his first interaction with the kids, it was it was a can't miss experience. And if you weren't there for that day, then you're like, "Man, what did I miss?" And so you're going to want
mm,
to be there for those opportunities. And the reason why I share that is that, like you said, you don't have to have been a teacher to for a certain number of years to be able to lead effectively, because you lead and seek leadership from everywhere and anywhere. And that's what real ruckus makers do, is they find a way to get that leadership there. Ralph Nader said the function of leadership is to produce more leaders, not more followers. And if you've been in the classroom for no time at all, you can still be an effective leader. And I know that that's blasphemous and that people will lose their minds from me saying that, but that is the truth. You can. And there are
yeah.
people who are great leaders who are not experts in that field, because that's not what being a leader is about. You don't have to know everything.
I'm glad you brought that up because it reminded me. So the reason I went on the social media tangent is, besides the clown thing and like, oh, you need a dog and pony show, the other very common response, which is just stupid and lazy. Like literally, if you took 5 seconds to look into my background, you wouldn't say what they said. But the tell me you're not a teacher without telling me you're not a teacher, right? I've gotten
Yeah.
that. I've gotten that for school leadership. I've gotten that for central office. And newsflash, I've actually had experience at all those levels. And so, I obviously that says more about the person than me, and I'm not going to take it personally. But it's just interesting, is all I'm saying. So, it makes me think about like, tell me what you know about teaching as you're a teacher tweeting that, and why I
Yeah.
would never hire you, right? Like,
Yeah.
and speaking of that, in terms of principals needing a decade, you can see over my shoulder here. It's really pretty. It says
Yeah.
create results, not a resume, right? This is a before and after, old school traditional resume CV versus you're out there creating results, or illustrating your learning in public, right? That's the new resume. So that teacher's post, like for me, was a resume saying, "Oh, nasty attitude," right? Like somebody I wouldn't want to hire, and they don't not even realizing what they're posting there and how that's the new resume. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And so I think about that in this idea of, there is uh, the role of the principal. A lot of people think is the instructional leader, and that's what all the quote unquote research says.
Mm-hmm.
And the reason, because I'm working on my doctorate and have been reading this stuff, the reason the research says that the principal is the instructional leader is because the research says that the principal is the instructional leader, because that's what they're looking at. They're not looking at other things. And we know how important the cultural leader of the school is, and how if you put all this emphasis on instruction and you only measure the results of the instruction, and you're missing out on the things we said before about what the real purpose of education is, then you're going to not ever be able to see that there are more important things than the actual instruction and about what people become. And so you don't have to be a master teacher to be a principal. You have to be great at inspiring people. You have to be great at creating a worthwhile experience for school. You have to be great at making people feel like this is a worthwhile profession, that they have the skills and the capacity to accomplish a great thing, like molding a child into a good human being as an adult. Like, those are not simple things, and they take a lot of effort and a lot of skill. And it is not just about instruction, even though that's the lie that we've been told for years, that if we just teach the academics right, then we're going to be fine. And even in the best schools academically, not everything is fine, because we're all humans. And so there are challenges, and we mess things up and all that. So there's so much more to it than just teaching academics.
One last thing I'll say is, some systems like to pretend that they're a business and want to use sort of business language or ideas to run the school. And I don't necessarily know or think that that's bad. The interesting irony that I see is, if we're going to learn from other industries to enhance our leadership, wouldn't it be interesting if we hired school leaders like venture capitalists fund founders? And what I mean by that, it's pretty clear that if you're a first-time founder, it's really difficult to get funding for your business idea from venture capitalists. And the reason that is because they want to know that you actually screwed up a business and failed big time before they trust you with their money. What's going on there, right? Because they know that through failure and going through the ringer, you have learned such important leadership, life, and business lessons. They can now trust you with a sizable amount of money that they might invest in your company. So isn't that interesting, right? Like, what if we only hired principals who failed massively at something, at a do school different dream, that maybe didn't get like 100% of the way there, but they learned some lessons, and now they can do even better for kids. So, I think that's an interesting thread to pull on at some point.
Yeah, that should be an additional premise that we put in. Like, you don't get the top job until you failed at a previous job, which begs the question: how do you get experience when you have to have experience to get that experience? And that, I think, is a really powerful idea to be thinking about also.
100%.
That is not always easy to understand and figure out either.
Yeah.
All right, so a couple pictures from this one. Here is an image that I drew, and this is in the past the principal standing on the cart saying "go, go, go" to the person in front of him, and then the new premise is the principal standing behind pushing, saying, "Is this what you need?" And then I have another image which I will just describe, which is there is imagine a circle that has management, and another circle that has instructional leadership, another circle that has instructional leadership, and all those circles that has leadership in it. And leadership is more than just about the academics, more than just the classroom. So there's that.
Great. Yeah. Thanks for sharing it. I'm not going to do my image because I essentially drew that, which I already
That works. So this one I know is going to be fiery also, which is poor student behavior causes discipline issues. That is the premise, and we reject that, and we say adult emotional dysregulation causes behavior issues. What have you got to say about this one?
You're right.
Good.
I accept your new premise. What I'd love to hear is how you learned it. You know what I mean? Yeah, I'll leave it at that. I have a story how I learned it, which I'll share. But how did you learn that lesson?
So a couple things. I mean, there's a lot to unpack here, but the place I'm going to start is the book.
Yeah, you recommended that to me. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, great book. And one of the things that it says in here, that let me just read a couple of the chapters because it's so powerful and so against what we currently believe.
Yeah, chapter titles, or are you reading the full chapter? Like I should go grab a coffee and sit in my reading chair?
No. Just chapter titles.
Okay.
So the first one is deny trauma.
Yeah.
Trauma doesn't exist.
Lord Almighty.
Gosh. The second one is all problems are interpersonal relationship problems. So if you have a problem, it is an interpersonal relationship problem.
Don't make us accept responsibility for who we are and how we behave.
Right? Yeah. And then I'll just read the third one, which is reject other people's tasks. And
that's like reject the premise.
Yeah. So one of the main things here is the way that I learned this is my oldest daughter was born with Down syndrome. And it changed how I saw raising kids and teaching kids. Because we went from, I have 3 brothers and 3 sisters, lots of competition, who's got the best kids, who's got the smartest kids. My kids did this at this age, got this AP score, SAT score, whatever. Lots of that kind of stuff happening. As soon as my daughter was born, all of those things just disappeared. And instead of us having these high expectations, which we all think are really important, we decided to have no expectations. And we didn't expect anything. We just loved our kids and wanted them to be their very best version of themselves. And then we helped them do that. And now, nearly 20 years later, seeing how our kids have flourished and really become their best selves without any of the expectations has been really amazing. But how does this relate to all problems are the problems of the adults? The problem arises when adults have expectations of kids and think that kids should act or behave in a certain way, and then they go after the kids and are bothered by what the kids are doing and are taking out their aggressions, and that is what is actually causing the behavior problems. It's not that the kids are going to do stupid things. So are adults, by the way. But when the problem is in how you prepare for that in advance. If you think that kids have to walk in a straight line and always be silent all the time, and then as soon as someone gets out of line, then you lose your mind about them, all that does is escalate the situation for everybody. And it doesn't have to be that way. So one of those things from the Courage to be Disliked is the power of no expectations, which is not explicitly stated, but that's how I interpret it for us. And that is a really powerful thing. And when I stopped expecting something from kids, they actually did better than I would have expected them to originally. They performed better in all facets than when I had high expectations for them, which is just a fascinating thing to experience, which you really have to suspend that expectation for that to happen. And when I stopped expecting kids to be perfect, then their behavior got a lot better. And it's really amazing how that works.
Yeah, you recommended that book to me ages ago. And the big idea that I always memorized was the idea of whose task is it, right? And I think, school leaders, teachers, this is how I learned the lesson is the tasks that my student had. I often made it my task, and then I would be frustrated about it, right? So example would be teaching sixth grade, right? They have lockers for the first time. Beginning of the year, you're teaching them how to do a combo lock, right? That's before like retina scanning and fingerprint, like thumb fingerprint.
Do we have those now?
We should. That'd be a good business idea. But in kids, it took a long time to learn it. So when a student was like, "Mr. Bauer, can you help me with my lock?" and it was the middle or the end of the year, I would say yes, but I'd have a big attitude about that, right? And sometimes that happens here at home, right? My wife might make a request, and it's up to me if I want to honor it or not. But if I choose to honor it, I shouldn't have an attitude about it, right? And that's that key point, having an attitude about it. So I was listening to a podcast at the time about parenting. I don't have children, but I thought that I might be able to apply some of the lessons learned about parenting, potentially apply them to the school setting. And I was right. And the big theme that I learned from the episode was that a couple things. One, it's really entertaining for a young person to see an adult lose their mind because they're out of control, right? And now you want to talk about Bozo is in the classroom. When you lose your when you're dysregulated and you're losing your mind as a teacher, you look like a freaking goofball, and it's hilarious to all types, from kindergarten, I'm sure, to high school, right? So that's entertaining, and maybe I'd call it...
That's a can't miss experience, Danny.
So... Did we just solve education's problems? Let's just find the most dysregulated adults and put them in classrooms. Nobody would want to miss that. What's going to happen today? It's WWE Raw for schools. That's funny that you said that. But, at times I would be upset, and kids found that funny, which only makes you more upset, right? So that was one big aha. And then the second was... not accepting sort of like their problem was not my problem necessarily. And so stop like owning it. Stop trying to be the savior, the hero in that situation. That took a lot of pressure off. And then the third thing was sort of having a Jedi middle way approach to like a negative comment, that a student might make to get that reaction that's interesting. Mr. Bauer, you suck. You're a terrible teacher. And I would say, you're probably right. What?
Yeah.
Wait, I just called you a big jerk, right? You're a terrible teacher. Yeah, you're probably right. And that was that. And literally when I started sort of agreeing or having this middle road, that could be probably true, probably so, you're probably right, that kind of stuff. Oh no, right? All of a sudden the kids stopped making those insults. It was because they didn't get the response they wanted. So last thing I'll say, there was a student and she was having trouble with her locker. It's the end of the year. Mr. Bauer, help me. And old Mr. Bauer would run out of the class, help her out, be upset because he has a class full of kids he should be instructing. Who's watching the kids? And why doesn't this girl know how to do her lock at this time? And I remember when she said that to me, and I was like, oh no, what are you going to do about it? Right. And I put it back on her, and she goes, would it be okay if I go and just slowly try to figure out my lock? And would you please not give me a tardy if I'm late coming to class? That was her response. I said, go for it. Right. Now, this was talking to the class clown, somebody who was legitimately funny, even difficult for a teacher not to laugh at her jokes and her mannerisms. And usually when she came to class late, she'd make a big show, right? And everybody would laugh. and you'd have to get the class back on track. This time, she comes to class late, got her locker open, had all her materials, gives me a thumbs up, and quietly walks to her seat as if she's been possessed by, I guess, an angel, in this case, because she does it perfectly, right? Exactly how you want your students to come into class late. And I was like, oh my God, this stuff works, right?
Yeah.
And the realization for me in that moment, it's me. How I respond to these situations in the classroom literally changes the environment. And the second I learned that, Jethro, that was the last day I wrote up a student with a referral. How about that?
Yep.
Kids didn't change. I changed.
Yep.
Yeah.
Totally. It's so fascinating that you bring up the referral piece, because we reduced office discipline referrals in all of my schools, not because the kids changed, but because we asked the teachers to change. And,
right.
And once we started that kind of approach, then the referrals just went down dramatically, because when the only reason you ever write a referral is because you want someone else to deal with your problem. There's no reason to write it other than you want somebody else to take care of it. And and when you ask, like, hey, like, I'm never going, as the principal, I'm never going to have the same feeling about this situation that you do. And, like, it's not going to be as effective for me to deal with it as it is for you. And one of the things that we also tried was saying, if you're going to write a referral or send the kid out of your office or out of your classroom to the office, we're going to come down and take your class so that you can talk with the kid, because that's really the issue, is you don't have time to deal with it. And so we did that a couple times, and then teachers never asked for it again because they just found the time to talk with the kids, because that's what really needed to happen. There's one other aspect of this also from the Courage to be Disliked that I think is really important, and that is the damage that praise causes. And it's in line with this because, let me set it up here this way. Let's say, for example, that you're in your school and you're doing something, and a kid comes and helps you do something, and you're like, oh, you're such a good helper. Thank you for helping me do this. That's a totally normal kind of thing that we hear all the time, right? Well, let's say instead that the principal's working on something, and a teacher comes and helps him do that, and the principal says, you're such a good helper. Or let's say a husband is doing something in the garage, and his wife comes out, and he says, you're such a good helper. Both of those situations would be totally demeaning and disrespectful to the teacher and to the wife. And we would call that misogynistic if the husband's doing that and saying, you're such a good helper. That's because anytime that you praise someone, you create a vertical relationship that says, I am above you and I know more and am better than you. And the difference, the better way to do that is to express gratitude. Instead of saying you're such a good helper, say, thank you so much for helping with this. I really needed your help and I didn't even have to ask you. And so I appreciate how you helped me. What that does is that creates a horizontal relationship, and it makes the person that you're giving that gratitude to instead of praise feel like they are your equal and able to participate with you. And that is a powerful way to deal with students also, in that when you are giving praise, you are forcing them to be below you. When you are giving them gratitude, you are elevating them to your same level. And by doing that, they then don't see you as the bad guy or someone on the other side. They see you as an appropriate and respectful equal. That's exactly what that class clown girl did in your story. Is she saw you as an equal, recognized that you were giving her an opportunity, and respected you by acting appropriately coming into the class. Yep. Because you gave her the opportunity to solve her own problem instead of saying, either I'll solve it for you, or you're now in trouble because you're not going to be here on time.
Yeah.
There are lots of different ways that could have gone, but you made her an equal, and not an equal in like, there's still a hierarchy. You're still the teacher, but you made her an equal in respect and value, not an equal in some superfluous, non-meaningful way that doesn't actually matter.
Yeah. You demonstrate that high regard, right, for her humanity. I'm glad you took the time to explain that, because saying there's a problem with praise just on its own sounds crazy, right? I think people would have a hard time with that. But when you talked about praise versus gratitude, vertical, horizontal relationships, that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah. There's a lot of good stuff in that book. The Courage to Be Disliked.
Yeah.
Yep. So here's the picture that I drew to drive that point home, which is the old premise is the principal's on top, the teacher's down below, and then the students are below the teacher. And in the new premise, we have horizontal instead of vertical relationships. And even though there is still a hierarchy of position, there is a horizontal level playing field as far as respect and humanity and value goes.
Right on. My picture is just focused on what you can control, right? Can't change others, you can change yourself. So that's where it's at. Last thing I'll say, because this has to do with discipline being at the feet of the adult, but this is just a general leadership idea. It's a quote that I got from Jocko from Extreme Ownership. There are no bad teams, only bad leaders. Holy smokes. Like and I really like that. I mean, we could riff on this for the next 40 minutes and we won't. But maybe we'll end with this idea, which is imagine you couldn't change your staff, right? Get Jim Collins out of your head. Stop thinking about buses and the seats on the bus and where people are sitting and if they're on the right bus. Instead, start thinking, I can't change my staff at all. And we can still be an incredible school, a legendary campus. So if you accepted that as do it as a thought experiment, how would you have to show up differently in terms of potentially supporting and providing feedback and whatever you need to do as a ruckus maker and as a leader? But if you couldn't change your staff and you still would win, however you want to define winning, right? What changes? Because there's no bad teams, right? Only bad leaders. Imagine that. And that's somebody who was in the military, I think a Navy SEAL, don't quote me on that, but the stakes were extremely high. And he was saying, oh, my team, this isn't a better, objectively there might be guys who are fitter, smarter, whatever, more resilient. But he said, it's really all on me. So that's the last thought I want to share.
Yeah, I really like that because it is very true. And you cannot actually change your staff, by the way. Despite what you may think, you can't. So your picture was perfect. You cannot change anybody else. You can try, you can think you can, but the reality is that you cannot. And so that's really powerful. And I do want to give a shout out to Eric Shigala in Transformative Principal episode 251.
All right, Eric.
Show notes where he did not change his staff and completely transformed his school with no attrition and using the same people and created a completely different model for a school. It is possible, but it is almost unheard of because almost always we think we need to get the old guard out and bring new people in, and that's what has to happen. So it doesn't have to be that way, and you can only change yourself. All right, Danny, this was awesome as usual. Thank you so much for doing this. Go check out the next episode of this on Better Leaders, Better Schools podcast, and then the next one after that will be back here on Transformative Principal, and you can see a link to all of them in the show notes for this show at transformativeprincipal.org. Thanks so much for being here, Danny.
Thank you for the opportunity, Jethro.